Hello everybody, it's Sarah and today I'm back with another tag, and that is the Meowing Bout books tag that was created by the book goddess who also tagged me and who created this tag kind of as a companion tag to the Barking Bout books tag by Break Even Books, which by the way I also did. I think last week or the week before that, I don't know. But all the videos, all the original videos as well as my Barking Bout books tag will be linked down below, so definitely go and check them out. So as I have said, this is kind of a companion tag, so the concept is quite similar, just that the questions are more cat related than doggy related, of course. So there's 9 prompts and I will do it as I did with my last tag. I have not looked at the prompts since I first saw the video, so I haven't thought of any answers and I'm just gonna do it spontaneous. Although going by the last one, my answers always came very quickly. And I will try, I don't remember what my answers were for the last tag, but I will try not to have any doubles. I will try to go out of my way and choose answers that I don't usually choose. So prompt number 1 is Catnip, a book or series that you devoured in one sitting. And I fucked up on my first take, so I already have the series right here. It's a series that I personally, I mean, it's not one of my favorites, even though it's definitely a booktube and book Twitter favorite. But I still really enjoyed it and I definitely read this series in one sitting. And that is the Folk of the Air trilogy by Holly Black. I mean, I enjoyed them well enough. They're like fun, easygoing YA fae fantasy. I think I gave the second book 4 stars and the first and the third book 3 stars. I really enjoyed the characters and I definitely devoured this in one sitting. I think I read the entirety of the 3 books in 2 days. So yeah, more than a book per day, and that doesn't happen that often to me anymore because I just usually don't have the time, to be honest. So that is my first answer. Question number 2, Litterbox, a book so stinky you want to bury it in the sand. And since I have most of my books that I really didn't like not on my bookshelves anymore because I started unhauling them, so they're kind of in a corner of my room and I'm too lazy to get any of them. But because of a recent video I did, I have one right here, so I will go and get this one because it's here on the floor. And that is The Winter Duke by Claire Eliza Bartlett. I read this at the beginning of 2020. And I know YA main characters can be very whiny and can be kind of annoying, but I have never read of a YA main character that was as whiny or as annoying as the main character in this book. Basically, because of a sleeping curse that's put on her family, she's suddenly in the position that she has to take over her dukedom. And instead of trying to make the best of it, she just constantly whines that she doesn't know what to do. And she constantly whines that all the politicians are working against her, but she doesn't even try to assert herself. She just, whenever someone screams at her or pushes her away, she's like, but don't do that, please. And then afterwards she whines why won't they trust me? And there was no character development at all in the entirety of the book, and it was just oh, horrible. I hated it so bad. So bad. Prompt number 3, Scratching Post, a non-fiction book you keep going back to sharpen your mind or your claws. And I don't usually reread any non-fiction, but I have kind of reread parts of a non-fiction recently, so I will go and get that because they're behind you, technically, behind the camera. So that book was the first book I had to buy for my studies in cultural and social anthropology at uni for my bachelor's, and it's Small Places, Large Issues, an introduction into social and cultural anthropology by Thomas Hyland Erickson. And this book is exactly what it says it is. It's an introduction into social and cultural anthropology, both in the history of the discipline and also into central concepts of the discipline, be it gift giving, myths, what is ethnicity, and so on. And since I started, of course, this year my Let's Talk About Culture and Fantasy video, I have started going back and rereading certain chapters in this book because I just wanted to be concise in the concepts that I use to analyze the fantasy books on my shelves. And also this was the one book that I had to go back to again and again and again during the entirety of my studies. I used it for both of my bachelor papers, I think, although no, not the second one, just my theoretical bachelor paper. I used this, and so I can definitely recommend this if you're interested in like anthropology. It's kind of in between of a popular non-fiction that you usually see on BookTube as well as academic work, because it is an introductory work, so it's not too complicated, but it's also not exactly written like your usual popular non-fiction. And yeah, I really like this book. And also, if you're interested in all the non-fiction on my shelves, I recently did a bookshelf tour of all the non-fiction that I own and haven't read, so I will leave the link down below and up there. Next is Mouse, a short book or short story that you like to play with and then devour. And I'm a fantasy reader. I don't do short books. I have almost no short books at all on my shelves. But I recently read a few short story collections that I will now share with you. So I recently finally read something by Oscar Wilde that isn't The Picture of Dorian Gray. I read this short story collection as well as another one, but like all the short stories from the other one are also in this collection. This is The Canterville Ghost, The Happy Prince and Other Stories. And Oscar Wilde is just a genius writer. I love the way he uses words. And he's very much a satirical writer, so most of these stories are of the satirical variety. However, some of those are satirical and hilariously laugh out loud funny, and others of them are satirical and so depressing, so incredibly depressing. But yeah, overall I just really love this, so this is probably my favorite short story collection on my shelf. And it's also not too long. It's 225 pages, so it does count as a short book as well. Prompt number 5, Hairball, a book you liked the first time you read it, but after the passage of time you feel like you want to throw up because of it. And that is definitely, like, I don't think there is a better example than Twilight for that. I loved Twilight when I was 12, 13 years old. A lot of us on BookTube did, and I don't think there's any shame in like enjoying Twilight at any point, like just simply for the story, not considering the author. But last year, I think it was pretty much the 1-year anniversary of my cancer diagnosis, so I was in my feels, I was feeling bad, I was feeling like shit. My anxiety was really high because my first checkup came up, and that's like, if anyone has gone through any like medical scares or medical issues, you will know that like the first checkups in general, but the first checkup especially, is just really, really hard to go through. And so I, for some reason, was like, you know what? Let's reread Twilight and maybe film myself doing it and like talking, you know, rereading Twilight 10 years after I first read it, that type of thing. I couldn't even get through the first chapter because Bella already made me so angry. Just in the simple way that she acted towards Charlie, who was the sweetest dad ever, and she herself decided that she wanted to move to Forks. But for some reason she doesn't actually want to move to Forks, so she takes it out on him. And yeah, I just thought that was kind of really shitty and really horrible. And just like, I don't know, that was just the first chapter and I was like, no, I cannot go through this. I cannot read Twilight now. So Twilight definitely is that book. Next prompt, attitude, a character that has the attitude of a cat. And I don't know. It's interesting. But I think I know what I want to go with. Let's move the little cactus out of the way. I think I'm gonna go with Loki from The Gospel of Loki by Joanne M. Harris. Because, you know, he's very much a character who wants attention. He wants to be close to people. He wants to like be appreciated by people. But at the same time, he also constantly like, you know, does his own thing and acts like he doesn't care at all what others think of him, and also does stupid shit. I mean, like the metaphorical throwing glass off of tables, but instead he just kills people or helps others kill people. And he very much reminds me of a cat, even though one of his children is a wolf, so, and another one is a horse. So maybe he's not that catty at all, but he reminds me of one. Number 7, Perfect. A book or series that is so perfect you can't find any flaws at all. And I don't think I have any of that on my shelves, because like I usually find flaws in most of my books, or at least, you know, things that I think others wouldn't like about it or so. But I just remembered something, like a book that's pretty much perfect even though a lot of people don't like it, but to me it's exactly what it's supposed to be, and it's like exactly what I want it to be. And that is back here, here. The Queens of Innisleea by Tessa Gretton. This is a Shakespeare retelling of King Lear, and it's just a perfect character study of these characters. And a lot of people don't like it because it is very slow for a high fantasy. I mean, high fantasy sometimes can be slow in terms of like getting into world building and so on, but this purposefully is very slow because you're just exploring these characters and their struggles and their decisions and what makes them decide the way they decide, and it's just a perfect book. It's exactly what it's supposed to be, and I love it. Second to last question, is your favorite horror or scary book? And I don't do scary. I don't do scary at all. I hate scary. And I don't read horror books, so let's go with the one scary-ish book on my shelves that I actually did give 5 stars. Let me get it. So that book is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, and I wouldn't call this a scary book necessarily. It's more like an unsettling book. I won't say what it's about because I would recommend you go into this blind, but there's a lot of kind of fabulism stuff in this, and it's just like unsettling. There's creepy things in here, and kind of like one thing that kind of, I wouldn't say it's body horror, but that definitely made me like go, that's disgusting. But yeah, I definitely really love this book. I really need to read more Neil Gaiman. I don't know why I haven't yet, but it's definitely on my goals for 2021. And the last prompt, 9 Lives, a series or author that you liked, then was dead to you and that you now like again. And I don't really have any authors where I would say they were dead to me in terms of I didn't like them. However, I have a few authors that I haven't read anything from for a few years and that I would like to get back into. One of the ones that's like currently my project is, let's get her from right here, Juliette Marillier, who used to be one of my favorite authors, but then for some reason a few years ago I just stopped reading her stuff. And I don't even know why. I think it was around the time I discovered BookTube, and then there were suddenly so many new recommendations, and I know that Juliette Marillier, especially in certain circles on BookTube, is talked about a lot more again right now. However, she was never mentioned on any BookTube channels when I started watching BookTube, and I think I just had so many new recommendations that I just went and read those and didn't actually read any of the books that just, you know, were my favorites at the time and that I had found myself, and that's why I stopped reading her. And now I have reread one of her books, read a new one of hers that I hadn't read before, and I wanna get like solidly back into her writing in 2021. So that's the author I'm going with. And with that said, that is all the questions. I will once again tag people on Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. Tell me in the comments down below your answers to any of the questions or your thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out. All the links to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, in which we read one adult high fantasy book written by a woman per month, are also in the description box down below, so go and check those out as well. And I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!